Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and I'm here today at Strategic Defense in Târgoviște, Romania, taking a look at the CTS9. Now, this is a 9mm AK platform manufactured here in Romania by a company called Nova Modul. And you may be wondering, what on earth would be special or interesting about a 9mm AK? We have a bunch of those, right? They're kind of a commoditized thing, part of addressing the huge demand in 9mm carbines because they're super fun. They're competition guns, they're recreational guns, etc., etc. Well, this actually is really a pretty interesting example to me, in part because of its backstory. So we're going to start first with the question of who is Nova Modul? Well, they're a manufacturing company located in Cugir, Romania. You may recognize the name Cugir from the original Romanian state arms factory, which was a massive manufacturing complex in the town of Cugir. Think of this as Springfield. The Springfield Arsenal is in Springfield, Massachusetts. Well, Cugir is sort of this little mountain valley area. It's interesting how many small arms factories historically are located in little mountain valleys like Oberndorf or Valtrompia. Anyway, the arsenal was set up there. Well, it goes all the way back to 1799. It became a major small arms arsenal a little more recently. After World War II, it was the main location for production of communist-era small arms here in Romania. So they manufactured Tokarev pistols, Mosin Nagants, Papasha submachine guns in small quantities, the Romanian Oritsa submachine guns, SKSs, DSHKs, a massive number of AKs. The Romanian AKs were primarily manufactured at Cugir. It's a factory complex, so it's not like it's one factory that switches between different products. It's a whole bunch of different factories with different production lines operating simultaneously. And all of the Romanian AK parts kits that we got into the country 10 years ago, those are all from Cugir. Now, with the fall of communism in Romania in 1989, massive changes took place. And a big one was a serious drop in military spending in Romania. There wasn't sort of the paranoid communist militaristic focus on small arms production. All of a sudden, with democracy, with a shift away from communism, well, there isn't a need to maintain a huge army, and that money needs to go into other areas of society. And so the factory complex at Cugir started to fall into disrepair. Now, it continued to manufacture guns, and it still does manufacture guns. It actually split into two separate companies. One is UMC, Uzina Mechanica Cugir, and they sort of inherited like the heavy machine guns. They have production lines for the Dishka, for the 14.5mm KPV. They also manufacture the Romanian Model 95 pistols, which I'll have a video coming out on soon, as well as a few other products. And then the other one was Fabrica d'Armi Cugir, which manufactured or kept the production line primarily for the AKs. So a lot of the imported post-assault weapons ban AKs we've gotten, the commercial imported AKs from Romania, came from Fabrica d'Armi, which was also part of the original state arms factory, but is now a separate commercial venture. So that's what happened to Cugir. Now, at the same time, in the town of Cugir, we have a factory or a company called Nova Modul, and they're established in 1994. So this is 5 years after the fall of communism. This is an entrepreneurial private venture that's set up as a manufacturing company. They do machining. And their particular specialty at first, and what remains a major component to their business, was making gears, vehicle transmissions, very complex planetary gear assemblies, the sort of thing that takes a lot of mechanical precision and manufacturing expertise. And they got really pretty good at a lot of this. So fast forward to 2009, Nova Modul is this manufacturing group, moving along, making stuff. They get approached by Century, the classic arms importer. Century wants to get new production 75-round AK drums, and the price they were getting from the old state factories turned into commercial ventures, but kind of bureaucratically hampered private ventures. Well, the price for those drums was too high. So they approached Nova Modul, and they're like, hey, you make stuff. Can you make us 75-round drums? And Nova Modul looks at this and goes, yeah, you know, some stamped stuff, some milled stuff, not a big deal. They put together a production line and they're still making those drums today. In fact, I was visiting the factory and saw a couple of racks of new production drums in the manufacturing process. So they crank those out for a couple of years, and in 2014, they're approached by Chiappa, and Chiappa wants to know if Nova Modul can make a complete 9mm AK. Because again, they're easier to work with, they're an entrepreneurial organization, and they've got a really impressive modern factory to manufacture kind of anything. I've got some B-roll here of the factory complex itself, for the factory buildings. They have a couple different buildings, a lot of CNC manufacturing technology. It really is quite an impressive setup. And I think it's easy to confuse this because it's located in Cugir, but it's not actually part of the original state arsenal. It's a startup company. Anyway, they say, well, yeah, we can make AKs, and they set up all the same sort of forging and milling and stamping machinery to manufacture AKs. There are people around in Cugir who are quite familiar with this process. They have the technology, they have the expertise. Done. They start making 9mm AKs as well as 7.62 by 39mm AKs for Chiappa. So come to just a couple of years ago, and Nova Modul is making AKs. They're being imported now by more than just Chiappa. They're being imported by Century as well. You can actually buy AK parts kits, like never assembled sets of parts to make your own AKs, made by Nova Modul. And in particular, they have this guy, and this is the MAK-9, MAK-9, produced for the US market. It's a pistol. It's got the sling swivel on the back. It's in 9mm. It's set up to use Skorpion mags because that's a commercial good idea, the sort of thing that commercial enterprises are better at than state arsenals. And like, okay, cool. Got an optics rail on top. It's nice. The local sport shooting community in Romania, which is not huge, but definitely exists, well, they're interested in this. And there's one sport shooter who's working with Nova Modul, but he's also a sport shooter himself, and he takes this CTS9 and thinks this would be a really good basis for a PCC, for IPSC and IDPA competition, and it's way more cost effective than importing something like a CZ Skorpion or a 9mm AR from the US or from somewhere in Western Europe, because hey, it's being manufactured right here in Romania. So why don't we take that and modify it so that it's ideal for PCC competition? And that becomes the CTS9. That stands for Competition Tactical Shooting. So let me show you up close what they did to change the stereotypical cheap Century Draco thing into a pretty cool and reasonably advanced style of PCC. All right, so this is the basic NAK-9. Sorry, I think I said MAK earlier. It's NAK-9. That was made specifically for Century for US importation. And it's got the things that, well, we would expect from a Romanian AK pistol. So it's a standard AK receiver design. They've given it a polymer 9mm magazine well that does use Skorpion mags. This is a 10-rounder, but it'll use all standard Skorpion mags. The front end is standard AK, so it'll take all standard AK furniture. It has a front sight block only. It doesn't have the combined front sight and gas block because it doesn't have a gas system. It's a simple blowback gun. We've got just the sling loop on the back because it's imported as a pistol. Not really a whole lot else to talk about there. This particular one has an improved safety lever on it with a hold open notch and the finger lever for easy use. As these are generally imported, in order to keep the price down, they just have standard safety levers on them. Now, when you look at that as the basis for a competition carbine, of course, the first thing you want to do is put a stock on it because you're not shooting the thing one-handed as a pistol in PCC division. So it has here a standard AK trunnion, so it'll take any AK stock. They do make them. There's a tactical pattern that you can get, like this guy, that has various different types of hardware, but they still attach to a standard AK rear trunnion. They have some tactical plastic front handguard attachments that I frankly don't really like. I like the look of the original wood, but for people who want to mount lights, lasers, anything else, that's available. But then for competition, you want the improved safety. You, of course, want a beveled, flared magazine well to speed reload times. And the most substantial thing is to add a bolt hold open lever, because the Skorpion mag is set up with a hold open tab. It will lock the bolt open, but in the original pistol design, while it'll lock open, the only way to close it is just to take the mag out and drop the bolt. There's no way to lock it open without a mag. There's no way to do a more tactical sort of fast reload. So they added a hold open lever right here. Push it up. It will manually lock the bolt open, drop it down, and it will close the bolt. Something that's relevant for proper high performance shooting. I mentioned this optics rail before, and I want to point out how it works, because it's not just a rail screwed onto a stamped sheet metal dust cover. They actually put a good deal more thought than that into it. So if we lift up the rear sight here, you can see that this optics rail is actually pinned in place in the front sight, or in the rear sight block. So when I pop this in and lift it up, this is pinned in place. And it's a tight enough pinning that between that and this, you're going to hold zero perfectly adequately for a red dot. Are you going to want to put a 12 power scope on that? Yeah, maybe not. But for PCC division, for a red dot on an AK, on a 9mm AK, that's sufficiently effective. Now, if we look a little deeper in here, we have basically an AK operating system, but modified for 9mm. So the recoil spring is shortened. They have their own proprietary buffer spacer in here. This is a consumable part. I think it's intended to last a couple thousand rounds. They told me they've used them up to like 14,000 rounds without any real problem, but that is intended to be a cheap consumable. And then we have our bolt. So solid gas piston extension here. There is no gas system. That's just to add mass. Got a big old extractor. And the rest of this is just weight, regular AK firing pin in there. If we look inside the receiver here, we have a completely standard AK fire control group, standard AK safety. The front trunnion has been redesigned to, well, basically just to be flat up here. They've machined dual feed ramps in there for a dual feed magazine to make sure that it feeds properly. And then we have over here the bolt hold open lever. So not a whole lot to show you from inside there, but the magazine will lift that up, pulling it down, drops the bolt. Obviously what's happening is this hook right here is stopping the bolt from going forward. So here are the markings. We've got serial number up on the trunnion, and then the model number here is CTS9C, that's competition tactical shooting. 9 because it's 9mm. C is for classic because this one has the wood furniture. TP is for tactical pistol, which is the model that comes with the polymer furniture. And then caliber made in Romania by Nova Modul. Recognizing that the optics mount on that rifle is effective, but does have limitations for heavy optics, Nova Modul does actually make a second type of top cover optics mount. And this is one that goes all the way through. Instead of being pinned up here, it actually replaces the rear sight. Now it has its own rear sight added in, just a little bit behind where the original would have been, but more importantly, it has a locking mechanism back here. So I can unscrew this and then push this in and lift up this whole very much reinforced rear dust cover. So this is the heavy optics mounting solution for folks that are interested in it. Something extra that they added on. It adds cost, it adds complexity, it adds weight. And to my mind, honestly, I think the original rail is just fine. A 9mm AK to me doesn't need, I don't need to put a massively heavy, super precise optic on it. A red dot is going to be just fine. And I think that standard rail is perfectly acceptable for a regular red dot. Now, just because I'm a fan of prototypes, I'm going to also take the opportunity to show you guys this example. So on this one, the furniture has all been replaced with Magpul furniture. This is actually the first prototype of the CTS9. And it's marked as such right there, prototype 1. This is specifically the gun that our competition shooter took, modified, built up, and proposed to Nova Modul. And it's kind of cool that they've actually laser etched it on the side in Latin, that these three guys, Daniel, Raphael, and Tiberius, made this for the sport shooting community. That's a cool little add-on. So that is the story of the CTS9. I think it's a really cool example of leveraging, in this case, leveraging a foreign export market, the American export market, to create the infrastructure to create a low-cost, affordable, but high-quality competition carbine for the local domestic Romanian shooting community, and providing that to a relatively small shooting community that otherwise would have difficulty convincing someone to tool up to make guns specifically for them. So I really find myself quite taken by this. We have one of the high-end competition shooters here in Romania who brought by his example, which has been totally dragged through the tactical catalog and has all the things on it. But it's a cool example of what you can do with a 9mm AK base gun. So I'd like to give a big thanks to a bunch of people who made this video possible. Strategic Defense, the gun shop here that gave me access to their facility and their inventory of examples to film, as well as ANCA, the Romanian National Firearms Collectors Association, that made this whole trip possible. So, oh, and of course, Nova Modul for inviting me into their factory and letting me film a bunch of their impressive CNC machining centers. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. These guns are currently focused on sale in Romania and in the EU. They are available, like there's no reason they can't be imported into the US if there's an interest. I don't know if they're cost competitive in the US, but it would be fun to see someone import some and see them as competition to something like the Kalashnikov USA KP9s, because I think there's no reason that this couldn't be very effective competition for other carbines like that. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.